Morbid Facts, Part 6. Young filmmaker Lee Halpin was filming a documentary about the hardships of being homeless by living as one. But he was found dead in the streets only 3 days into filming. The nuclear blast in Hiroshima was so powerful that some people were vaporized instantly, leaving only shadow imprints of their final moments. In the 1970s, a man who committed suicide by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge left a suicide note saying, "I'm going to walk to the bridge. If just one person smiles at me along the way, I won't jump." Morbid Facts, Part 1. Bobby Driscoll, the original voice of Peter Pan, became addicted to narcotics when his acting career failed as he got older. In 1968, two little boys got lost while playing in Manhattan's abandoned underground area, and they found Driscoll's rotting body. His body was surrounded by beer bottles, a religious pamphlet, and a wooden crucifix. He was only 31 years old. An elderly woman in the People's Temple cult at Jonestown took a nap before the community committed the largest mass suicide in modern history. She woke up to more than 900 dead bodies scattered around her. Morbid Facts, Part 3. After being shot in the forehead by a drunk man and enduring an 8-year coma, policeman Gary Dockery suddenly woke up. He started talking enthusiastically, recognizing old friends and recalling events from past years. But by the very next day, he could no longer speak, and he slipped back into the same coma and never woke up again. In the 1980s, a family owned and operated a ceramics factory in California called Oscar Ceramics. But in 1987, the factory was revealed to be an illegal crematorium. This was only uncovered when a passerby, who happened to be a Holocaust survivor, recognized the smell of burning bodies from his time at Auschwitz. Morbid Facts, Part 7. The woman who voiced the demon Pazuzu in The Exorcist had a son who killed his whole family. He then proceeded to shoot himself in both temples simultaneously. And he did all of this while wearing a Freddy Krueger mask. The White House owns a doomsday plane in the case of an end-of-the-world event. It is a modified Boeing 747 that can apparently withstand terrorist attacks, a nuclear bomb, and asteroid blasts. It can also stay airborne for days without refueling. In 2011, Tokyo officials went to congratulate the oldest man in the city on his 111th birthday. But instead, they found his mummified remains laying on his bed. He had been dead for 30 years, and his family was still collecting the pension money that he was receiving. Morbid Facts, Part 10. 72-year-old David Lee Niles was reported missing in 2006. 5 years later, his family held a funeral for their lost loved one despite not finding his body yet. But eventually, Google Earth users found this car trapped in a pond near David's home. When they went to search it, David's skeletal remains were found in the car. A doctor chronicled the progression of Alzheimer's disease in one of his patients by collecting her signatures on medical forms over the years. In 2011, a 49-year-old Russian woman had a heart attack and was presumed dead. A few days later, she woke up at her own wake and was so shocked that she screamed and had another heart attack, this time dying for real. Morbid Facts, Part 12. At age 25, a woman named Blanche Monnier had her heart set on marrying a lawyer that her mother wasn't too fond of. When she disappeared one day, most assumed that she had simply run off with him. But 25 years later, someone sent local authorities an anonymous letter saying her mother was holding her hostage. When they arrived at the home, they found Blanche bound and starving in the attic. Dying is forbidden in the town of Longyearbyen, Norway, or at least, you won't be buried there. The town's only cemetery closed over 70 years ago because it's so cold that the bodies buried there previously never decomposed. The problem is that some corpses still carry traces of the Spanish flu virus that killed up to 50 million people worldwide around 100 years ago. Morbid Facts, Part 13. This girl's jaw was hanging on by a centimeter of skin after a horrific horse riding accident. The injuries sustained by Emily Eccles were the worst her surgeon had seen outside of a war zone. But reconstructive surgeon Ricardo Muhammad Ali was able to rebuild her face during a 6-hour operation. The photo on the right is her back in school just 1 month after the accident. This was a white hearse used for children's funerals back in the 1930s. A boy genius named Brendan Bremer was able to read at 18 months, graduated high school at age 10, and composed music. He tragically shot himself at age 14 to donate his organs to those in need. Morbid Facts, Part 8. A grieving mother from Florida added a sandbox to the gravesite of her baby boy so that her older son could play with him. Forced standing was a barbaric form of treatment that was believed to be a cure for insanity in the 19th century. The mental patient would be forced to stand in a compact cell for days at a time with very limited food, water, and outside contact. This is a real photo of a patient enduring this treatment at a Texas mental institution in 1890. In 1977, the University of Evansville men's basketball team was involved in a tragic plane crash. The crash killed every player on the team, except for one man who didn't make the trip due to an injury. 2 weeks later, the only remaining player was killed by a drunk driver. Morbid Facts, Part 4. In 1985, a 13-year-old Colombian girl was trapped up to her waist in volcanic mud flow. She was mostly alert and was interviewed, but rescuers couldn't find a way to save her. Knowing she would certainly die, volunteers did their best to comfort her. She died after 60 hours, and her image became iconic. In 2008, a Brazilian priest strapped 1,000 balloons onto a lawn chair and rode it into the sky as part of a fundraiser. He was able to reach an altitude of 20,000 feet before losing contact with authorities. Over a month later, the lower half of his body was found floating near an oil rig. Morbid Facts, Part 5. After being diagnosed with polio at age 3, Diane Odell spent nearly 60 years encased in a 750-pound iron lung. She only died when a power outage shut down the machine that had been keeping her alive for decades. Do you know why you wake up right before you're about to die in a dream? It's because your brain doesn't know what it's actually like to experience death. In 1901, Madame Bobbin from England fell ill late into her pregnancy and was pronounced dead. But a few days later, one of the nurses was tormented by the idea that she may have been buried alive. After Madame Bobbin's father was alerted of this, he demanded that the grave be dug up immediately. When the coffin was open, he was horrified to find the corpse of a baby with an uncut umbilical cord laying between his now dead daughter's legs. Morbid Facts, Part 9. Jake Thompson was home alone when he had both of his arms ripped off in a farming accident. However, he still managed to get up and dial 911 with a pencil in his mouth. He miraculously survived and both of his arms were reattached. For centuries, there was a paint pigment called mummy brown that was made out of the ground-up remains of ancient Egyptian mummies. The color was manufactured until 1964, when the supply of ancient mummies was finally expended. This is a photo of two engineers embracing for one final hug while standing on top of a wind turbine engulfed in flames. One of the men jumped to escape the fire while the other one was burned alive while attempting to reach the staircase.